Yeah, that was my girlfriend. That was somebody who I was exploiting, but I didn't kill her, bro.
David has been under serious scrutiny for a while now, and his most recent revelation isn't helping his case. He just spoke publicly about his girlfriend's final words, and the neighborhood is buzzing. Was he really involved in what happened, or is there something even more disturbing beneath the surface? Let's break it down. David has finally addressed the truth. The music industry was shaken to its core on September 9, 2025, when LAPD officers responded to a deeply unsettling situation at Hollywood Toe on North Mansfield Avenue. What began as a routine complaint from employees about a foul odor coming from an impounded vehicle quickly escalated into one of the most disturbing investigations. Involving a rising music star, the vehicle in question, a Tesla registered to 20-year-old crooner David Anthony Burke, better known in the industry as David. This is the same young artist who took the internet by storm with chart-topping tracks like Romantic Homicide and Here With Me, both of which racked up billions of streams on Spotify. But that Monday morning, David's name would become associated with something far more unsettling than hit records. The situation took a grim turn when yard staff noticed the strong smell coming from the Tesla and notified authorities. When law enforcement opened the vehicle's front trunk, or frunk, as it's called in electric vehicles, they discovered something that would send shockwaves through the case for months to come. Inside was a severely decomposed body, wrapped in a bag. The condition of the remains made identification incredibly difficult. The body wasn't intact, weighing only about 71 pounds, and clearly had been there for some time. What made this even more troubling was the timing. As LAPD processed the gruesome scene in Los Angeles, David was thousands of miles away, actively performing on his We World tour. In fact, he was scheduled to take the stage at the Fillmore in Minneapolis on the very same day, September 9th. Initially, public opinion leaned in David's favor. Many believed in his innocence, pointing out that he was on tour when the discovery was made. Additionally, reports had already circulated that his Tesla had been reported stolen about a week prior. The prevailing theory on the streets was that someone had stolen his car and used it to carry out something horrific.
Oh, listen, he didn't do it. He literally performed the next day. If he was a suspect, the police would have been after him. He's not a suspect.
He's not just escaping the police clutch.
From the beginning, there were signs that this case might not be as straightforward as it appeared. The Tesla had reportedly been left unattended in the Hollywood Hills for around 5 days before being towed, and local residents had already noticed a strange odor. Most assumed it was just a dead animal or something similar. What really caught public attention, though, was how quickly major brands began to distance themselves. Both Crocs and Hollister immediately ended their partnerships, with David following the news, an abrupt move that hinted they may have had access to information that hadn't yet been shared with the public.
I think it's like almost obviously not him. But what's weird is that Crocs dropped him.
Yeah, why would they do that?
That's weird.
The victim's description revealed a truly heartbreaking scene. The remains belonged to a woman approximately 5 feet 1 inch tall with wavy black hair. She was wearing a tube top, black leggings, a yellow metal chain bracelet, and stud earrings. But the most notable identifying feature was a small Esh tattoo located on her right index finger. That single tattoo would become a major turning point in the investigation. To fully understand the weight of this discovery, we need to take a step back and look at who David was before all of this unfolded. Born in Queens, New York, David later relocated to Houston, Texas during his early years. After 7th grade, he began homeschooling and remained deeply committed to his Christian beliefs.
Homeschooling really takes a toll on a kid, like
isolation.
Yeah, and there's outlets like I made a couple friends now that were homeschooled, but they had like these groups that they would go to like bi-weekly and just a social.
He appeared to embody the American dream, a gifted young man who rose from humble beginnings, achieving success through determination and creative talent.
I didn't have that. Like there was no like extracurricular activities I was involved in it was just me at home playing Fortnite, getting schoolwork done, learning how to code and build computers for 4 years.
David's rise in the music industry was unlike most others in the game. His journey began back in 2021, creating Fortnite gaming montages on YouTube. To avoid copyright issues, he started producing his own background music. What began as a practical solution quickly turned into something bigger, eventually landing him a deal with Darkroom and Interscope Records. His entry into music almost sounds like a modern-day underdog story. In November 2021, frustrated by constant copyright strikes that were cutting into his video earnings, David vented to his mom about losing income. Her advice ended up changing everything. With just an iPhone, a pair of Apple earbuds, and a free app called BandLab, he started recording music in his sister's bedroom closet. He searched YouTube for instrumentals, downloaded beats, and recorded vocals using the phone's mic. That raw, lo-fi sound that later became his trademark wasn't part of some master plan. It was simply the result of using what he had available.
I downloaded this app called BandLab. You can make your own vocal chains. That's what makes or breaks an artist on BandLab, is your vocal chain, because what kind of made my sound popular was because it sounded good, like the quality.
His breakout single, Romantic Homicide, was released on July 20th, 2022. The track quickly gained massive attention, eventually reaching number 3 on the Hot Alternative Songs chart and climbing to number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100. Like his earlier work, the entire song was produced using that same do-it-yourself setup, recorded in his sister's closet with just a phone and raw, personal lyrics. But in retrospect, some found the speed of his success and the dark tone of his music unsettling. Romantic Homicide included lyrics that, when revisited, felt eerily personal. Lines like, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it."
I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear.
When David explained the meaning behind the song in interviews, he clarified that it was about letting go of thoughts and emotions, not any form of real-life violence. At the time, that interpretation seemed reasonable, just a young artist working through difficult emotions through his music. But as events unfolded, what fans once saw as expressive storytelling started to take on a much more serious and unsettling tone.
So it's all in the mind, because that's the most secure place you can be, is in your mind. So if you can expel that thought from your mind, then everything else will just come together.
By the time the Tesla incident came to light, David had transformed from a Fortnite content creator into a multi-platinum artist with billions of streams on Spotify. He had been touring with major names, performing at major festivals, and earning the respect of a fan base that saw him as a genuine voice for his generation. His music reflected themes of loneliness, emotional pain, and the need for connection in a digital age, messages that deeply resonated with young listeners, especially those shaped by the isolation of the pandemic. Despite his growing fame, David kept his private life relatively quiet. Even with all the success, he remained based in Houston with his family, continuing to record tracks in the same bedroom closet where he started. He stayed committed to his Christian faith and regularly attended family Bible studies, maintaining the image of a grounded young artist who hadn't let the spotlight change him.
Faith-based thinking and just being grounded on the rock of God is just like, it helps me in so many aspects, to staying level-headed and staying on the ground and staying realistic and not getting too big of a head. And my family is very, very supportive, and they're my support system, and they guide me through this whole thing. We have family Bible study every Saturday.
The gap between the clean-cut image David had cultivated and what was about to be uncovered made the entire situation even more shocking. As the investigation gained momentum, David's team claimed he was cooperating with federal authorities while continuing with his tour schedule. Their public statements were carefully worded, acknowledging the seriousness of the case while firmly maintaining his innocence and cooperation. His legal representatives directed all inquiries to law enforcement, a move that signaled they were treating the matter seriously, but not as if they were in full crisis mode. The Tesla itself became a central piece of evidence. The 2023 model had Texas plates and was registered under David's full legal name. It was discovered in the Bird Streets area of the Hollywood Hills, a high-end neighborhood where abandoned vehicles stand out quickly. The choice of location raised several questions. Why leave a Tesla in such a visible upscale area? From the outset, investigators faced serious challenges. The body found in the vehicle was so badly decomposed that even determining the victim's age, race, or cause of death was extremely difficult. Adding to the complexity, the remains had been wrapped in plastic, indicating that someone had tried to contain both the smell and possible evidence. But ultimately, that effort failed.
You know, what was put in that bag, the body had been dismembered, and maybe they don't have enough at this point to positively say this was the cause of death.
The situation took an even darker turn when Celeste's mother informed authorities that, prior to her disappearance, Celeste had spoken about having a boyfriend named David. With that information, the connection between the victim and the artist was no longer just coincidental. It became a direct and personal link, placing David firmly at the center of the investigation.
We had actually spoken to Celeste's mother last week. And at that point, the police had said that the tattoo was there, but the mom told us more information, which the police had not released, which was that the tattoo was in red ink.
The situation took an even darker turn when Celeste's mother informed authorities that prior to her disappearance, Celeste had spoken about having a boyfriend named David. With that information, the connection between the victim and the artist was no longer just coincidental. It became a direct and personal link, placing David firmly at the center of the investigation.
Told us that she was aware that there was a boyfriend named David.
And that her daughter had a tattoo with the letters "sh" on her right index finger.
Celeste Rivas was just 15 years old when she disappeared, though some unconfirmed social media posts suggested she may have been only 13 or 14 at the time. She lived in Lake Elsinore, a working-class city in Riverside County, located about 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles, far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, where David's music career was beginning to thrive. Her birthday was September 7th, a date that would later take on deeply unsettling significance as more details came to light. Celeste was described as having wavy black hair and standing around 5'1". She came from a Hispanic family and was living what seemed like a typical teenage life until everything changed. As investigators and journalists dug deeper into the case, evidence began emerging that suggested a personal connection between Celeste and David. Photos posted on social media appeared to show the two together, including images of them on FaceTime with mutual friends. One particularly troubling photo allegedly showed them together at 3:51 a.m., raising serious concerns about the nature of their relationship. The timeline added more cause for concern. Based on online discussions and posts, the alleged relationship may have begun when Celeste was between 12 and 14 years old, while David would have been 17 to 19. Considering David's birth date, March 28, 2005, this places the beginning of their alleged involvement sometime between 2020 and 2022, during the early stages of his music journey. Recently, screenshots of alleged conversations began circulating online, reportedly showing David communicating with Celeste via Discord when she was just 13. If these messages are legitimate, they would be strong evidence of an inappropriate relationship with a minor. The conversations were said to have taken place in 2022, around the same time David's breakout hit romantic. Homicide was gaining momentum, but perhaps the most disturbing details came from the final months of Celeste's life. Messages posted by friends dated April 29, 2024, weeks after she had already been reported missing, indicated she was still alive and in contact with people close to her. These messages suggested that Celeste was on the run, hiding from her parents, and involved in a relationship that deeply concerned those around her. Her messages revealed a troubling emotional state and referenced someone named only as David. In one exchange, she mentioned feeling scared and described a situation where he returned to her crying. She also asked her friends not to contact her, further implying she was hiding with someone and fearful of being found. When friends expressed concern and asked if she intended to keep speaking with David or go back to him, fearing it would lead to more harm, Celeste's reply was, chilling in its contradiction. I'm safe. No, I'm not. These discussions brought several alarming facts to light. First, Celeste's friends were aware she was in a perilous circumstance connected to an individual named David. Second, they knew she was concealing her location and using a secondary Instagram account for communication. Third, the messages included allusions to private conduct that pointed toward an improper sexual dynamic. One especially troubling chat involved Celeste sharing explicit physical details with a friend, with implications of sexual activity. The dialogue indicated she had been sexually involved with David and that her friends knew about this connection. Given that Celeste was 14 or 15 years old at the time, and David was 19 or 20, any sexual relationship would legally constitute statutory rape in California. Celeste's final communication suggested she was attempting to pull away from David, but was acting out of fear. Her friends repeatedly checked on her, urging her to remain safe and not to delete her Instagram so they could maintain contact. The last messages depicted a terrified young girl who felt cornered in an inescapable situation. These discoveries entirely dismantled the original theory that David's car had been stolen and used by another person. there was now definitive proof that David had known Celeste, had been involved in a relationship with her, and that she had remained alive and in hiding for weeks after she was reported missing. The situation grew even more sinister, with reports of alleged payments for silence. Social media posts from users claimed David had been compensating people to keep quiet about his involvement with a minor. One post supposedly stated that a friend had been shown proof David owed money at Lake Elsinore for being with an underage girl. These accusations implied that individuals within David's circle knew of his relationship with Celeste, but had accepted money to remain silent. This portrayed a calculated effort to hide an illegal relationship, using financial incentives to guarantee secrecy from those who might have otherwise informed the authorities. However, the most unsettling detail was still to emerge. Investigators and online researchers began analyzing the timeline of Celeste's disappearance and death alongside David's music releases. Celeste's birthday was September 7th. On that exact date in 2022, David had released Romantic Homicide, a track featuring lyrics about killing someone in his mind. The situation grew even more alarming when it was determined that the Tesla was most likely parked and abandoned on September the 7th, 2025. This was precisely 3 years after the song's release, and on what would have been Celeste's 16th birthday. The symbolic weight of this chronology was undeniable.
It appears she may have been killed on her birthday. She may have been killed on September 7th. The body was actually located in the impound in the back of the Tesla on September 9th.
This was not the only musical link that alarmed the public. Alleged messages from Celeste's brother stated that David had composed an unreleased song named Celeste, with lyrics that seemed to reference her, including a line about the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. These purported messages also asserted that the brother had discovered proof of private exchanges between David and Celeste, which contained professions of love and photographs. The brother's claimed account depicted a family that sensed something was amiss, but felt unable to intervene. According to a social media post linked to him, he attempted to give this evidence to the police, but believed it was being dismissed because of David's fame. As public scrutiny grew, further information about their alleged relationship continued to surface. Reports indicated David had been seen near Celeste's home in Lake Elsinore before she vanished, and that individuals in his social circle were aware of the connection but remained silent. The age difference between David and Celeste became a central point of the inquiry. At 20 years old, David was a wealthy, famous adult with considerable influence. Celeste, at 15, was a minor from a working-class background, lacking the resources or power that could have offered her protection. This dynamic represented a significant power disparity that would have been deeply concerning even without the criminal accusations. Legal analysts began outlining the potential charges David might face, disregarding the murder allegations for a moment. The proof of an improper relationship with a minor could lead to severe charges, such as statutory rape, child endangerment, and possibly federal charges if she was transported across state lines. The discovery of Celeste's identity and her link to David was a pivotal moment for the investigation. What first appeared to be a potential case of a stolen car or mistaken identity had transformed into a homicide case with a defined victim and a suspect who had clear ties to her. The LAPD officially categorized Celeste's death as a homicide, although the precise cause remained undetermined due to the body's advanced decomposition. The medical examiner's report mentioned the remains showed indications of having been deceased for a prolonged duration, potentially for months.
The medical examiner has said that the cause of death is deferred. They have not been able to figure it out at this point, and there's going to be further toxicology testing.
The state of the remains posed significant obstacles for the investigation. Reports suggested the body had been dismembered, introducing a further level of brutality to an already shocking case. This fact pointed not only to murder, but to a calculated effort to hide the crime and eliminate proof. The forensic complications made establishing a precise cause of death a considerable challenge. Nevertheless, the dismemberment and the method of concealment left little room for doubt that a homicide had occurred. The central question shifted from whether a crime was committed to identifying the perpetrator and understanding how it happened. As information about Celeste's final months came to light, a heartbreaking narrative started to develop. It depicted a teenage girl who seems to have been groomed by an older, influential man with considerable resources. She had become separated from her family, was living in secret, and was reliant on an individual who may have ultimately been responsible for her death. The matching tattoos, rather than representing affection, seemed instead to be signs of ownership and dominance. The case against David had evolved beyond a stolen vehicle or a case of mistaken identity. It now centered on a 20-year-old man who was allegedly involved in an improper relationship with a minor, with whom he shared matching tattoos, and whose car became her tomb. The music industry and his fanbase were compelled to face an alarming possibility. Their emerging star might be someone far more dangerous than anyone had suspected.